Got him? Yep. Tommy, did he absolutely throttle that? Woohoo! Oh my, holy cats, Pat! Whoa, giant! Whoa, look at the size of that lake trout. That is the largest lake trout that I have ever seen. This is one of my favorite things to do probably the last 5 to 6 years is come out and fish lake trout. It looks like that when you look at that, there were definitely lake trout right there, right off the bottom, anywhere from 4 to 12 foot. You know, when you're driving around out here, I'm definitely using my electronics, and I've got the panoptix, and I'm using my down imaging and side imaging on the Humminbird. You'll mark a lot of fish, and typically the way I look at it is if you see more than 3 or 4 on the screen at one time, definitely they're going to be Cisco. You know, when you start marking these big groups, sometimes there's 30 to 100, 200 fish on the screen. Them definitely are not lake trout. You can usually tell too by the marks. Obviously, the Cisco are a lot smaller marks than most of the lake trout. But that's the big thing, because I get a lot of guys that come out here and say, oh my gosh, we were marking lake trout. They were absolutely thick, 20 foot, 30 foot thick. And I'm like, most likely that is not lake trout. But the lake trout will a lot of times sit underneath them Cisco's. And obviously when they're hungry, they'll go up into the pack and try to grab one and you know, go back down. And I don't give them a lot of time. You know, we've already hit probably 6, 8 spots already. I'm gonna mark them. You know, I'll give them 5 minutes. If I don't get bit, I usually move on. The same thing is, if I do drop down on a spot and there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them down there, typically, you know, you'll get bit, catch one. I won't try to catch the other ones. It's very rare because it seems like they see that fish get caught and they see that warning sign, and usually they'll clam right up. I mean, you could sit on them for half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and, you know, get them to change their mind. But, you know, that's ice fishing's one story, but open water, better off just turning the key, taking the bow mount off a spot lock and just keeping her moving and try to get on another little pod or a single. You know, and I will, if I see a giant mark, I'll definitely stop and fish just one mark too. I don't have to see multiples, even though I like to, especially when I see 3 or 4 or 5, you know, trout down there. That's usually your chances are a little bit better to get one of them to trigger. But there is days where I'm coming out and I'm just looking for that giant lake trout. Today, we're just trying to get a couple of lake trout in the boat and show you guys exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it and trying to get it all to work. This one's actually coming up. I'm coming up. You can see the trout's coming up, watching the bait. And sometimes I'll just do a steady, like a slow roll up if that fish stays right on my bait. Now we drop back down, lost interest. They're really finicky today, and I'm not quite sure. Typically, early mornings are definitely the best time frame. I have caught them all day, but usually try to get out here like we did this morning right at light. You can see my bait going back down. Them fish drop right back down with the bait. They're looking at it, but I'm going to change baits here in a couple seconds. I started off with using some cut bait, and usually if they're really finicky, that's the best way to catch them. But I've gone through spoons, I've gone through jigging wraps, shiver minnows, you know, different plastics now just to try to figure out what they want for the day. Come on. Bite, you little son of a guns. See you down there. For your drink. You know, summer. There's a fish. Woo! Hey, I'll tell you what, here we go. Got a lake trout. I'll tell you, just using the bow mount and crawling, I probably used at least 10 different baits already. And it went back, I had 3 bites right when we got out here on just a jig. and a piece of cut bait, and we've marked so many fish today, but you know, lake trout, like anything, they can be really picky. And I went back to using the cut bait, and right away, oh, there he is down there, see him? Get over the side of the boat, yeah. Oh, there he goes. Oh, gone. See you, trout. I tell you what, you know, again, it's just adapt, and I went back to that cut bait right there, and just jigging it really slow. Boy, that trout just absolutely cracked that. You know, and that's the big thing. You know, we're out here today, everybody, trying to show you guys how to fish lake trout in these big, deep lakes without trolling. I'm not a big troller if I don't have to. And so basically, when you start thinking, you know, a lot of people think about like anything over 100 feet of water. How am I going to fish that? Well, pretty much anything that like I'm using today, you know, either I go to a half if it's no wind at all and I'm less than 100 feet of water. Like a lot of times these lake trout will be in 60 to 100, but this time of year the water temperature is 76 degrees. These trout basically are in anywhere from 90 to, you know, 160 feet of water. A simple 3/8 ounce jig will pretty much any day of the week get you down there, especially if you don't have a lot of wind. I'm using my trolling motor on spot lock a lot. Once in a while, I'll put it on like 1 and creep really, really slow if I see a bunch of trout. They're spread out on a break. But a 3/8 ounce jig is going to basically get you down there. And what I'm using is 10-pound test super braid. And then what I use is a really long leader because this lake is super clear. So my leader is about 6 to 8 feet long, and that is 12-pound test fluorocarbon. And again, just tying it either to any one of these baits, a jigging spoon, you know, a jigging wrap, a shiver minnow, or just now went back to what I started originally with, was just a plain jig and a piece of cut bait. And some days, no doubt, that is the way to go. We're going to show you on the locator exactly what we're looking for. And like I was saying a little bit earlier, you know, I typically look for 1, 2, 3, 4 lake trout, smaller pods. Again, there's so many Cisco in these lakes like this that a lot of times when you are seeing these massive, you know, 30, 40, 100, 200 marks on your locator, most of the time that's Cisco, but the lake trout will sit underneath them Cisco a lot. So, you know, you got to really watch that. I'm today basically, again, just kind of going along and working anywhere from 90 out to about 140 back, zigzagging. I see the fish. I have the bow mount already down. I've got my panoptix on. I've got my, basically my side imaging on my hummingbird on. You know, so I'm really watching these fish, and I'm just basically picking out individual fish and fishing them. I'm watching my bait go down. I'm watching the fish on the bottom. I'm watching them. I try to bring them up, and as they come up, I keep watching that locator. I'll keep coming up with them, and all of a sudden, if they lose interest, I'll free fall the bait back down the bottom, pound that bottom, and then start working them again. And typically, I only give a spot about 10 minutes. When I'm marking them, if I can't get them, if I can't trick them to bite in 10 minutes, basically I'm moving to the next spot of fish, you know. So that's the key. Don't spend too much time in one spot. I like to cut the bait in kind of a V. And what, if you notice, you guys, on the very end, I'm hooking the V to the jig. And what I do is I take my scissors and I cut little slots in the wide end right there. And it kind of just flutters in the water. So that's definitely key too. I don't use the piece very long. If I don't get a bite on this piece, the individual piece, in about 20 minutes, I'll change it out. Keep it fresh. When you're fishing lake trout, typically, if it's not a really good fish, or if it is a really big fish, and I plan on letting it go, what I will do is I'll start winding them up a lot slower, letting that air bladder adjust. You know, lake trout are probably one of the, you know, key species that the air bladders do adjust really fast. And, you know, if you were to catch a walleye in, you know, 60, 80 feet of water, the chances of, you know, reviving that fish, because the air bladder is going to be coming out of its mouth, are going to be pretty slim. But lake trout, you know, especially if you slow them down when you start cranking them up, they will adapt, and you'll be able to get them up and get them released. And back in the water, and those, you'll see that lake trout swim back down really fast. So that is definitely something to remember when you are lake trout fishing, especially if it's something you're not going to keep. Definitely slow it down. So far we only got one, had 3 bites, and it's almost getting to that 10 o'clock time, so we're going to give it about another 15 minutes, hit maybe 1 or 2 more spots, and head her on in. The key is to make sure you come out and you have fun. But, we're doing these videos so you guys can learn as much as you can learn, and that's the key to it. I'm pretty fortunate. I get to fish almost every day. Been doing it full time for 31 years this year. And it's not every day that I catch them either, and that's what keeps me coming back. So, you're always trying different cadences, you're trying different baits, obviously different colors, different locations. That's the key to fishing. The thing I love about out here is that you're fishing some days, up to 160, 180 feet of water, and you're jigging. So it's awesome when you finally do latch into a big trout. And you got quite the battle, and it lasts more than 10 seconds, so which is cool. Hey everybody, I'll tell you what, let's show you how to rig a rod when you want to fish for lake trout. And what we're using today is we're using a 7.2 Mags custom rod. And what I like is this is a medium action fast. It's a medium fast, so it's got a fast tip, so I can get really good action out of the bait. Now, what I've got these rods basically rigged up for Green Bay, and there's a lot of zebra mussels out there. So basically what I'm gonna do, I've got 15-pound test fluorocarbon on here. So I'm gonna change that leader out. I want my leader for this lake because it's super clear. I want it to be a little bit lighter. So what I'm gonna do I'm gonna cut the 15-pound test leader off here. Cut that off. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with a 12-pound test, and I'm going to go with a little bit longer. That was about a 4-foot leader. I'm going to go with an 8-foot leader. Again, because of the water clarity. And lake trout are a little bit different. They like to analyze things a lot most days. So what I'm going to do is a lot of times I'll tie a fisherman's knot, but I'm looking for big fish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the Palomar. So I'm going to go through the hole of the jig. I'm going to go back through again. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, so I got both ends right here, okay? So just like this, back and forth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and tie it into a knot, okay? So here we go. I'm going to tie it into a knot, and I'm hanging on to the loop, and I'm going to take the loop and pull it through the bait, and again, then I'm going to slide it forward. And you'll know right away that it's clinched down. That's definitely the key. When you want to fish big fish, make sure you use a good knot, and it's not going to slide on you. I just used the Palomar. Now what I'm going to show you guys, what we're going to do is I've got some perch fillets that I caught a couple days ago out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a perch fillet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches. I'm going to make a couple different cuts here. Okay. So what that'll do is that'll actually flutter in the water like that. See what I did? Okay. Now what I'm going to do, when I go to hook it on the jig, and I always leave the skin on because then it stays on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically just go up maybe 1/4 inch, and I'm going to hook my bait on there. Now I'll show you guys what it looks like in the water. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed our video this week on lake trout fishing on inland lakes. Hey, you know what? We only got 1 trout today, this morning I should say, but we've got a lot of things we got to do back at the farm, so we're going to go back and do some farm work. But it's all about learning, and I'm hoping you guys are watching our videos so you can kind of learn from my 31 years of guiding full-time experience. And like I said earlier, nobody catches fish every day, day in, day out, but it is all about learning, and that's what we're trying to teach you guys so you can come out here and be successful and catch yourself a bunch of lake trout. Hey, remember, like I always say, no doubt we are still living in the greatest country in the world as of today, and yes, it is still a day, and yes, it still is a great day to be alive, and we'll catch you next time. If you think you're getting chunky like a little monkey, maybe you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel down below.